Beating addiction means doing self reflection, leaning on your existing strengths, skills, and resources, reframing the way you think about motivation and rewards, and then thinking about how to fill in the gaps for those things you were lacking. Most of all, as Johann Hari said in his famous TED Talk about addiction, connection is the opposite of addiction. Connection with other human beings, family, friends, community. And how does one go from the throes of an addictive involvement to finding all of the elements that I just listed? It starts with introspection and values. Values are the inroad to all future thinking about beating addiction and living a fulfilling, balanced life. Welcome to the Life Process Program YouTube channel. My name is Zach Rhoads, and I work at Stanton Peel's Life Process Program, or LPP for short. To learn more about LPP and how it can help you or your loved ones overcome addiction in a practical way, visit lifeprocessprogram.com. In one of our previous videos, Dr. Stanton Peele explicated 7 rules for living a meaningful life, one of which was determining and living one's values. In this video, I'm going to talk more about values, as they are the roadmap to a non-addicted life, but specifically, how can you help your child or loved one who is experiencing addiction to articulate their values and begin using them as this roadmap to a non-addicted and balanced life? This is video number 2 of a series of short videos in which I'm helping family members think about how to interact constructively with an addicted loved one. If you haven't watched the first 11-minute video on this playlist, then I suggest you watch it. It's called Talking Your Child Through Addiction, Collaborative Problem Solving That Works. In that previous video, I talked about how to open a dialogue with an addicted loved one in a way that they engage rather than recoil. And then I discussed ways to get them involved in making some sort of progress and being proud of it. Now I'm going to take us a step further than only beginning dialogue. How can we truly help a person who struggles with addiction, whether to drugs or any other involvement that they may be over-reliant on? It begins with values. What in life does this person value? But how to enter a conversation about values? What's crucial to remember is that when it comes to addiction, it's not the object of a person's addiction per se that causes the addiction. It is their inability or perceived inability to meet life's demands. In other words, an addiction is not caused by a drug. It is not caused by alcohol, pornography, sex, love, gambling, gaming, or technology. These are all activities that most people participate in with virtual impunity. Addiction is caused by a lack of attractive alternatives to these activities. If drinking alcohol, for example, is a person's only coping strategy, then they may become preoccupied with drinking to the extent that they block out other gratifying life experiences that they could be generating. So, the trick to helping people that you love beat addiction is to help them find healthful, gratifying life experiences. Experiences that build on themselves in a positive way, and that help your loved one find and value independence. Here's an example. Let's say that your child is 21, done with college, but living back at home with you. And let's call this person Kevin. Kevin is having difficulty adjusting to life after college. No meaningful job, not much social involvement now that he's away from college living, no home of his own, no relationship, and feeling generally overwhelmed with life. Kevin, fresh out of college, drinks alcohol to occupy his time. Not just a little bit of alcohol. He sleeps late, begins drinking during his breakfast, which is at the same time as you have your lunch, and typically drinks all day into the night. From Kevin's perspective, life is hard. There's a lot competing for his attention, and that produces anxiety. To him, alcohol helps alleviate this burden. To you, Kevin's parent, however, it is clear that your son's drinking is causing him distress. He's been drinking more than you've ever seen him drink before. Because of his drinking, he is not sleeping well. He is not productive. He is isolating himself. He is missing appointments, not eating well, and he's getting into arguments with you and others and not remembering these interactions the next day. The drinking, by all accounts, is getting in the way from him living his best life. So, how do you help a person in this situation? Someone who seems to value oblivion over conscious experience? The answer is help him find and build attractive alternatives to drinking. attractive alternatives that outweigh problem drinking. This way, even though drinking is part of the problem, you can have a conversation about things that may act as a bulwark to alcohol addiction. And you don't necessarily have to bring up the sore topic, you're drinking too much and you have to stop. I'm using alcohol as an example. The same applies for any kind of addiction that someone might have. Now, to find out what makes attractive alternatives attractive, we can start with, yes, values. In Kevin's example, he likely values more than only alcohol, but he needs to think about how to enact his values. And once he's done so, then he can start experimenting with meaningful and healthful involvements. This may include finding a job, making friends, taking care of his health and sleep, finding companionship, and renting or buying a home away from his parents' home. It is tempting to beat a person over the head with messaging like, "Drinking is killing you, Kevin. Put the bottle down." There is at least an element of truth in that statement, but he may not hear it. If, in Kevin's mind, alcohol is the feature of his life that holds up all the rest, even if that's delusional, then the idea of getting rid of alcohol abruptly is likely scary, and he will recoil at the idea. It will be better to help Kevin think about what he wants to do in his life and allow him to see the clear path ahead of him. Remember from our last video, engaging someone in a conversation like this, one that is constructive, requires that you do the following. Show empathy. Demonstrate that you understand your loved one. This means asking questions that get to the root of life problems, concerns, and interests without judgment. You'll need to build rapport. Be able to reflect the concerns of your child or loved one so well that they will tell you, "Yes, that's right. Those are my concerns." Then don't try to immediately solve the problem. Let your loved one know that you have concerns as well, and you're willing to do your part at a pace that works for both of you. In other words, you're showing a willingness to solve this problem collaboratively. Finally, you're ready to make deals. If you demonstrate empathy and understanding and you build trust, you are in a position to solve problems with this person. While you're in this discussion phase of your problem solving relationship, it's a good time to ask about what your loved one cares about. The goal here is to get them thinking about the kind of person that he or she wants to be, and let that framework inform their application of tools, goals, and a lifestyle that will usurp their addiction. One way to do this is ask the person to project into the future. You could say, "Imagine that things went very well for about 5 years. You accomplished the things that you want to accomplish, and you got all the breaks you needed in order to feel successful. If that were the case, then where would you see yourself in 5 years? Who do you imagine that you're spending time with? What are you spending your time doing? Are you working? What are your hobbies?" And as far as skills and social involvement goes, you might ask something simple like, "What is one single thing you'd like to do better?" Or, "Who is someone that you can rely on the most?" Answers to questions like these can spark a conversation about where your loved one wants to go, what they want to do in life, who they want to be, and who they want to do it with. You will use your skills and being an empathic listener and reflect what you're hearing without judgment. And that will build yet more trust and rapport and a useful dialogue and ability for your loved one to articulate their concerns. Now, you already have information from the first video of this series about how to build rapport and enter into a constructive dialogue. In this video, you're thinking about how to access the way your loved one is thinking about their own life values. And you're helping your loved one articulate these values clearly, perhaps for the first time. A discussion about values sets you and your loved one up for subsequent discussions about how they expect to build a life worth living. Of course, their addictive involvement is an inevitable part of this conversation. You don't want to ignore the elephant in the room, lest you appear inauthentic. But removing the object of a person's addiction from the center of this conversation, at least in the beginning, is okay to do in order to connect. In the next video, I'm going to discuss how to get into a conversation in which your loved one's addiction and your concern about their addiction specifically is at the front and the center. We will also talk about how to set boundaries that your child or loved one can appreciate and respect. If you'd like to learn more about the Life Process Program and the way we think about and help others access values, then visit our site at lifeprocessprogram.com and stay tuned for the next video in this series all about limits, boundaries, and difficult conversations. Until next time.